For the most part, I really enjoy spy shows and movies, and while I liked Noah Centineo in the To All the Boys movies, I wasn't sure I could picture him as some covert agent. Well, The Recruit is a new Netflix series with Centineo in the lead. Should this stay undercover, or is it worth the watch? A fledgling lawyer at the CIA becomes enmeshed in dangerous international power politics when a former asset threatens to expose the nature of her long-term relationship with the agency unless they exonerate her of a serious crime. This 8-episode first season starts off with sort of a weird tone. It's kind of an action drama, but also has the massive feels of a TV lawyer show, where there will be some comedy thrown in from side characters. There is a duo of CIA lawyers that interact with Centineo's character of Owen, and for several of the episodes, it was almost like they were there solely to be the comedic relief. Now, luckily, that didn't last the whole show, and I'll get more into that in just a bit. Now, the series starts off with an action sequence, and we spend the rest of the series going back over everything that led up to that point. Noah Centineo plays a brand new CIA lawyer where his job is to ensure that the agency's operational side isn't doing things that will get everyone in serious legal trouble. But as we learn, his job becomes so much more than that. Centineo really grew on me during this show. Because he's playing a 24-year-old lawyer working for one of the largest intelligence agencies in the world, there's a ton of pressure that comes with the job. Centineo displays how that wears on him in a captivating and real way. He's still got a lot of that boyish charm that made him likable in the To All the Boys series of movies, but here it's combined with absolute stress and a constant state of unknown, creating chaotic interactions as well as situations that are consistently fluid. And those help to make this series exciting and engaging. We literally never know what's going to happen next because every time things appear to settle down for the character, at least one, if not multiple, complications arise. In addition to Centineo's Owen, there are a ton of players in this ensemble that help to make this series interesting and they're worth investing time in. First, there's Laura Haddock, who plays the former asset Max. Now, she's the one who's threatening to expose the CIA secrets. Well, I'm not sure if I was a fan of her character right away. She grew on me in huge ways, and I began to look forward to the interactions between her and Owen. Max is tough, smart, ruthless, but also with a tiny touch of humanity left in her that causes some internal conflicts, which I thought was great to watch. And mostly, she'll kill you without even batting an eye. But there are a couple of times when she appears that she might hesitate for the right character. Vondie Curtis-Hall is Owen's boss, and the matter-of-factness and then cool-headed persona that he gives off commands attention and respect. But I also love when there is this moment that we get to see a completely different side of him because of a special day at the agency. It's funny and it puts his character in a whole new light, showing that as tough as he may be, he's also a human and just might be the one that Owen needs behind him. Colton Dunn and Aarti Mann play two additional lawyers with the CIA, and they're the ones that cause the show to feel a little bit like a TV legal drama. Now, I'm not saying that is a bad thing, but their characters are written to provide some comedic relief as well as story complications for Owen. But sometimes it feels like the show wasn't exactly sure what it wanted from them. Are they meant to be allies who just sort of haze the new guy, or are they supposed to be more antagonistic and petty? At random times, all of that feels like it could be the angle that the show wants for them. But it just comes across feeling a little obvious and then juvenile, as well as pointless. Now, I'm great if there are antagonistic forces within his job that make things more difficult for him. But with this, there seemed to be some sort of plot confusion on exactly where the trajectory was headed for these two. Angel Parker plays a CIA operative, and the first time we meet her character, it's a tough one. We will learn right off the bat what kind of character she is, and it gives us good insight into the interactions that we're going to see during the course of the show. Now, I think some of her dynamic and her arc are predictable, but I'm not 100% certain that it was meant to be utterly obscured. I think part of this meant to give transparency to her motives and decisions. Kristian Bruun plays one of my favorite characters in this because the dude constantly looked like he's about to have a stroke and or a heart attack. His interactions with Owen are so exasperated and yet really funny. There's sarcasm, disdain, fear, even sometimes appreciation that's displayed when he talks with or even sees Owen. Now, his character also helps to give us a small bit of insight into other workings within the agency, which then help to provide background and details for things that we're going to see later in the show. And as the show goes along, the visible stress of his character's arc, it's crazy. The man just looks more and more haggard. And then there's even a point where he looks like Ron Weasley when he was barfing up slugs. The expressions, even the body language, illustrate defeat just combined with an ulcer. And finally, there's Fivel Stewart and Daniel Quincy Annoh, and they play Owen's roommates, and they provide a good amount of emotional support and softness for Owen. And because all three work in or around DC, their political connections overlap. And yeah, these do provide some plot conveniences, but they also help to keep certain storylines flowing and interesting. And there are also some points where you may want to slap the characters because of their decisions, but these also make the show stressfully fun. Now, this is a pretty fast-paced series with a ton of excitement spread throughout a lot of the episodes. And when there's action, it gets violent. I mean, not Gangs of London violent, but still. There's some decent bloodshed, and the beatings that are inflicted are pretty brutal. The action's also filmed well, and while there are sequences that utilize quick cuts, a lot of what goes on is also easy to see, showing us the fight choreography, which helps to make it feel more realistic. And then to add to the realism, Owen, he rarely wins a fight or even lands a punch. I mean, the dude's a lawyer for the CIA, not an agent or an operative, so it's very believable that he'd get his butt kicked in just about every altercation. I'm very impressed with Centineo and his performance throughout this. He's charismatic and feels like an everyman who just happens to be put in some anxiety-ridden situations. He's smart, but a bit bumbling, and that's exactly what the character is written to do. So it can be both endearing and aggravating to watch a dude charge headlong into something with zero plan other than spur of the moment, go now. And some of the stakes feel high in this story. I mean, not all of them have an urgency that's present, but there's enough tension that's then mixed with the action to keep it exciting. And the first handful of episodes are directed by Doug Liman, who has some experience directing both spy and covert movies, along with ones filled with crazy action. I mean, think The Bourne Identity, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Fair Game, and then Edge of Tomorrow, American Made, and then one of my guilty pleasures, Jumper. But he also did Chaos Walking, so there is that. But what the show really excels at is providing a protagonist who's not a superhero. He's fumbling his way through his first real gig, and it happens to be one that involves national security, so there's certainly a bit of pressure. But with the character of Owen, he feels real and likable, so even when plot conveniences are obvious, I'm still rooting for the hero, and I love being taken along on his ride. But I think the most frustrating part of the show is how the season concludes, because it kind of doesn't. There are so many loose ends that are dangling, so it doesn't feel complete. I want some story arcs to continue on or be set up for the future, but pretty much all of them in this, they're not resolved, which then just makes the whole first season prologue. I still thoroughly enjoyed the show and was there for the ride, but in the back of my mind, I'm afraid to become really just too invested in this for fear that it may be canceled before a second season can be created. I mean, I really hope that's not the case. You never know, though. So overall, The Recruit is a strong first season filled with intrigue, action, twists, and a main character who's full of charisma. The action sequences are exciting and showcase great fight choreography. The supporting cast is dynamic and varied, and the overall narrative is engaging thanks to the character growth we see in a few different players. The pace keeps this moving along efficiently, and as enjoyable as it all is, the ending still leaves a bit to be desired in terms of resolutions. There's sex, nudity, a ton of profanity, and a whole lot of violence. I give season 1 of The Recruit 4.5 out of 5 couches. So do you like spy-type movies or shows? Do you have a favorite? Let me know what it is in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.